You are welcome to this free video training on how to have your baby in the U.S. the right way, error and stress-free, and all within medical costs of $6,000 or less. At Deluxe Childbirth Services, we work with expectant parents interested in having their babies in the U.S., helping them do so the right way and within reasonable costs. Over the last 24 months, we have worked with over 50 parents to have their babies in the U.S. in line with this objective, including 2 sets of twins and a set of triplets. We'd be happier if even more interested parents like you access this quality care and the accruable benefits, and still at a reasonable cost, hence this free video training to get you started right. In this training, we'll be sharing with you, amongst other things, the real truths about how to have your baby in the U.S., the top mistakes expectant mothers make that leads to visa denial or being refused entry into the U.S., and proven ways to avoid them, the mistakes most parents make when having their babies in the U.S. that leads to outrageous medical bills, additional considerations when seeking the best childbirth costs in the U.S. Ready? Let's start. So why the U.S.? The key benefit of having your baby in the U.S. is access to better medical care and services for mother and baby. In addition to this, the child as a U.S. citizen will also enjoy the following: free entry and exit into the United States, travel to over 40 countries without need for a visa for stays 90 days and less. These include countries like Canada, the UK, Germany, France, etc. The right to sponsor immediate family to the U.S. as permanent residents. Access to government benefits such as educational loans and scholarships. The right to vote, run for public office, and apply for certain state and federal jobs. Now, I'll share with you the 3 key truths about having your baby in the U.S. For a moment, forget everything you may have heard or read. You deserve the truth. And here we go. The first myth about having a baby in the U.S. is that a visibly pregnant woman cannot get a U.S. visa if discovered, and even with a valid visa, she can still be refused entry into the U.S. The truth? A pregnant woman can get a U.S. visa and gain entry into the U.S. for up to 6 months, even if she is visibly pregnant. Myth 2. Having a baby in the U.S. is very expensive. The truth? You can have a baby in the U.S. with total medical costs starting as low as $2,500, depending on the city. All that is needed is proper planning. Our average total medical costs is about $5,000 to $6,000 for a normal delivery and $8,000 to $9,000 for a C-section delivery. The third myth is that having a baby in the U.S. can be stressful, possibly depressing. This can be true, depending on how you look at it. This is because most people in the U.S. work long hours and might not have a lot of time to help out. Secret is to be well prepared emotionally. Next stop, the 3 biggest mistakes expectant mothers make that leads to visa denial or being refused entry into the U.S. Proven ways to avoid these mistakes. Mistake 1. Being untruthful about your intention to have your baby in the U.S. to the visa officer. Most mothers, when applying for their visas, say they are going on a vacation, believing that as long as the consular officer does not notice that they are pregnant, they are fine. Truth is, you might get the visa, but you risk the chance of being denied entry into the U.S. at the port of entry. And even if you sail through the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, U.S. CBP, you risk the chance of having subsequent visa requests by you and your spouse denied. Why? Because in your next visa application, once the visa officer inputs your name into the system, it'll automatically display your child's birth certificate details. Based on this, he or she can easily deduce if you were truthful about being pregnant in your earlier visa interview and possibly penalize you for that. So how does one avoid this mistake? You will need to prove to the visa counselor that you are fully prepared to pay all your medical bills, and you will return back to your home country after the baby is born. Specifically, you will need the following. 1. Proof of a stable income paid with the same frequency. This can be in form of your monthly salary if employed. If you are a business owner, you need to show your personal monthly income paid to you by your business and not your business income. Irrespective of your employment status, proof of any regular savings has also proved to be very helpful. 2. A good estimate of what your total medical bills will be. 3. A letter from the doctor in the U.S. who has accepted to handle your care and birth the baby while in the U.S. This letter should state his or her fees for this service as well. And what proof do we have that this works? I'll share the story of one of our clients. This client wanted to have her baby in the U.S., but her monthly salary was not exactly fantastic, and she had never traveled abroad before. However, she had a savings account where she had been putting away money regularly, and she had saved about $8,000. When asked the purpose of her trip during the interview, she truthfully told the visa counselor she was going to have her baby in the U.S. He requested for proof of her income and adequate funds, for which she showed him her pay slips and bank statements of her salary account and savings account. He also asked her if she had a doctor in the U.S. and requested for proof. She shared with him the letter we had gotten for her from her preferred doctor. And despite her zero travel history, she was given her 2 years multiple entry visa. We have had very few cases where clients were granted visas without the letter from the OBGYN, but it's best to have all your documentation on you during the interview. Better safe than sorry. Mistake 2. Being untruthful about the purpose of your trip to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Officer. The U.S. is a country based on principles, so really instead of before taking every story in hook, line, and sinker, the first question to ask is, what is America's stand with regards entry of pregnant women into the country? Thankfully, the U.S. CBP website, www.help.cbp.gov, shares some guidelines. Based on this article on their website, the key things to note as a pregnant traveler are: 1. Have physical proof of correspondence with an OBGYN who has accepted to handle your care while in the U.S. This document should also include his or her professional fees and your appointment details. The letter used for visa purposes will be just fine. 2. Have physical proof of ability to pay all your medical bills yourself. This can be in form of receipts for already prepaid bills or the cash equivalent for planned venture. No cards, please, as the funds on it cannot be easily verified. 3. Ensure that the purpose of trip stated during interview ties with purpose upon entry, except in cases where you got the visa before being pregnant. 4. Be confident and don't lie. It sincerely is not necessary. With over 50 moms doing exactly this, and till date not one has ever been turned back, we can categorically tell you that these work. Mistake 3. Using government benefits, medical insurance, and/or relatives' health insurance. When one plans to have a baby in the U.S. and is granted a visa and entry into the States, this is done on the strong belief that the individual can and will take care of all bills arising from this venture. As such, as an international patient having a baby in the U.S., you are not allowed to use any government benefits. The government benefits include government-paid medical plans, prenatal care, or even government-provided newborn formula and foods to pregnant and nursing mothers via the WIC program. The use of these programs by a foreigner is viewed as defrauding the U.S. government and is not taken lightly. It also can result in denial of future U.S. visa requests for you and even the father of the child. You are also not expected to leverage a relative's medical insurance to pay your bills. People ask, so why is this wrong? After all, my relative pays the premium and including an additional family member to the plan is allowed. Sure, you are right. However, remember we are discussing the reason you were given the visa in the first place. When applying for the U.S. visa, if you stated that your bills would be paid for by you and they ended up being covered by your host's or relative's insurance, the embassy interprets it as this individual is really not able to handle the costs and may refuse future visa requests, even if you show adequate proof of being able to finance the trip. To avoid this mistake, kindly A. Plan and prepare to pay all your bills yourself. B. With all payments, even those made over the phone, get a receipt or request that the receipt be mailed to your U.S. address. C. Keep all your receipts carefully. You and the father of the child will need them for subsequent U.S. visa interviews. D. If there are complications and your final bill is more than expected, do not apply for financial assistance from the government. Instead, have a payment plan with the hospital and stick to it. At the end of the payment plan, request for a statement of your account. This should show your outstanding balance as nil. All clear? Great. Now we can talk the 3 major mistakes expectant mothers make that lead to outrageous childbirth bills. Before we talk these mistakes, let me quickly tell you what the components of a U.S. childbirth medical bill are. Hospital. This covers the use of the hospital facilities for delivery and your stay in the hospital. OB/GYN. This covers the cost of your prenatal care, one postpartum visit, and the doctor's professional fees for delivering the baby. Lab work and ultrasounds. This covers the tests and scans that will be conducted by the OB/GYN during your prenatal visits. Anesthesia. This covers the use of anesthesia, which is usually charged based on how long the anesthesia was used for. This fee also covers the anesthesiologist's fees for administration. Pediatrician. This covers the evaluation of the newborn after birth in the hospital and subsequent visits post-discharge. With this understanding, let's move to the mistakes. Mistake 1. Having your baby in an expensive state. Where you stay has a huge impact on how much you will spend. In our experience, delivery costs are very expensive in the East Coast, specifically states like New York, Maryland, and Massachusetts, but significantly cheaper in certain other states. Some of these affordable states, which have childbirth costs of $6,000 or less, are Texas, California, Ohio, Arizona, Nevada, Virginia. Mistake 2. Choosing an OB/GYN before a hospital. The major driver of a difference in childbirth costs within the same city is the hospital cost. Despite having similar facilities and care, Hospital A can charge almost twice as much as Hospital B, possibly just 2 blocks away. And since OB/GYNs in the U.S. do not birth babies in all hospitals, but only in hospitals where they have birthing privileges, choosing an OB/GYN before a hospital implies that you'd be stuck with using the hospital he or she delivers babies at, which might not always be the more affordable option. Mistake 3. Not taking the prepayment option where available. Different hospitals have their specific payment type for childbirth, which could be either of the below. A. 100% paid before delivery. B. A deposit paid before delivery and the balance paid when you receive the final bill. C. All bills paid after delivery. In our experience with hospitals, the best option is to pay before delivery. When you take options B and C, there is a huge tendency that you'd be paying at least 50% more. For example, in Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, Dallas, if you choose to prepay 100% before delivery, then the hospital cost for a normal delivery would be $4,200. But if you choose option B and decide to pay a deposit and balance post-delivery, then your hospital costs would be $8,500. Also, don't forget to prepay all your other bills as possible. This includes the OB/GYN and anesthesia. The only bill that can be postpaid is the pediatrician's, which will be sent to your address. So that's it, the 3 common mistakes expectant mothers make that lead to outrageous childbirth bills. Now it's time to show you 3 other things to consider in your quest to get the best childbirth costs in the U.S. To get the best available costs in the U.S., other things to consider include the birthing facility, accommodation, the delivery option. 1. The birthing facility. There are 2 types of birthing facilities, a hospital and a birthing center. The major difference between a hospital and a birthing center is size, management, and cost of care. While most hospitals are large with several departments, a birthing center is much smaller. Birthing centers are managed by CNMs, certified nurse midwife, and they usually cost less than the traditional hospital approach, depending on the state. In some states, birthing centers can cost up to 40% less than the traditional hospital approach. The average cost of a birthing center is between $4,000 and $5,000 and is an excellent way to bring your costs down, especially in the relatively pricey states like New York and Maryland. So if you are open to a vaginal delivery, have had an uncomplicated pregnancy, and are not a first-time mom, you may want to consider a birthing center. Personally, we recommend all first-time moms should use a hospital as they have no childbirth history. However, if you are expecting multiple babies, have had a previous cesarean section, have a history of being breech at term, have diabetes which is not controlled with diet, have chronic high blood pressure or other serious medical problems, you will not be eligible for delivery at a birthing center. 2. Accommodation. Accommodation, if not properly planned, can burn a bad hole in your wallet. As you plan your trip, you need to be clear on where you will be staying for the time you will be in the U.S. It's advisable to plan for a 12-week stay, though it could be less depending on your location. Most people have the option of staying with family and friends in the U.S. If you have this option and they are open to hosting you, please take the option, as a rented apartment costs about $1,500 per month. That's already $4,500 for your full stay. But please understand that for the period of your stay with your host, their bills, especially electricity, water, and groceries, will increase. So here are a few tips to making your stay a good one for your host. A. Be mindful of wastage, especially of light and water. Don't leave the tap running if not in use, for example, when brushing. Don't leave the lights, heater, or air conditioning on when not in the room. Don't do laundry for a few pieces of clothing. If you can wait a few more days and have a full load, this saves light and water. B. Be selfless. Before you leave your home country, buy some unprohibited local foods or traditional fabrics for your host. These are expensive in the U.S. and will be well appreciated by your host. Mix in and try not to behave like a stranger in the house. Offer help when you can. Go grocery shopping for the house once in a while, not just for yourself. 3. Delivery option. One can have a baby either via a vaginal delivery or a cesarean section, with the vaginal delivery being the more affordable option of the 2. Though we have limited influence over which delivery option we will end up using at the end of the day, we can still create the enabling environment to promote vaginal delivery. As such, when searching for an OBGYN, look for one who has more preference for vaginal deliveries than a C-section and discuss your preferences with him or her on time. If you have had a C-section delivery previously, you do not necessarily have to keep having C-sections. You can still have a vaginal delivery. This is known as a VBAC, vaginal birth after C-section. If you want a VBAC, choose an OBGYN who is open and experienced with VBACs. Yes, so that's it. 3 additional things to consider when planning to have a baby within affordable costs. If you have any questions, kindly send them to info@deluxechildbirth.com.